Okay, now let's have a look at the Excel question on paper 3. It's very important that you read the blurb at the start, and here you can see in bold that we have to display all country values in dollars with 2 decimal places. This will be important later on. So we're going to open up the j1331proc.csv, which is the comma separated values file. The important thing to start off with is to save the document not as a C. Okay, insert a new row. Okay. Merge the cell one. To H1. So format the text so that it's white, 18-point sans serif font. Format the cell so it is right aligned, has a black background colour. So I don't need to do this in any particular order. And as you can see, it's already a sans serif font, but I will choose Arial. So on the header, enter your name, centre number and candidate number. Okay, then the footer to the right. And up here we have the header and footer tools, and in there we can see we have the current date, press space, and the current time. Okay, we'll see this later on. You can see it down, it appears at the bottom of the page. Okay, so 1053 to 1056 are those advertised in the web page properties.htm. That was the page we were working on before. And we need to figure out the distance, okay, from the center. So I need to go back in. Have a look at the actual spreadsheet, the actual HTML document. And here we can see that the small house, which was 20,000, is actually in the centre. So 20,000, so that must be that house. So 0. The next one at 16,000 was 16 kilometres. The small farm, which was 22,000, was 20 kilometres. And the vegetable shop was 14,000, which was 14,000 was 4 kilometres. So now in cell C3 we need to enter a formula to calculate the income the property company will make when the property is sold. So this is $100 plus 2.5% of the price of the property. So the first thing we'll do, we can say is, well, it's going to equal 100. So that equals £100. But onto this we need to add on 2% so of the price. So price of the property times. Now there's different ways to do this. You should know that 2% would be 0.025, but as this is Excel, it's a bit more user friendly, so 2.5%. And then we can copy that all the way down. So in cell E3, enter a formula to display the viewing cost if the local taxi is used. If the distance to the property is less than 5 kilometres, then it's going to be $2. If it's greater than 5 kilometres but less than 15 kilometres, then the cost will be $5. If it's greater than 15 kilometres, the cost will be $10. So this is going to be an if statement. And the secret to this is to break down or translate the written English into instructions that the computer can understand. So we're going to start off with saying it's less than 5. If that's true, we want $2. But if it's not true, we can ignore this part, that's a bit misleading. We're going to see whether it is less than 15. So if it's false that it's less than 5, but then true that it's less than 15, it must be between 5 and 15 and therefore will cost $5. If it's not less than 5 and it's not less than 15, it must be greater than 15 and therefore $10. The way this works out, equals, and I'll do the if as an actual wizard. So if the distance, which is D3, is less than 5, then we're going to return 2 as the answer. But if it's not less than 5, we want to check if it's less than 15. So then we're going to click on the if statement again and go, this time is D3 less than 15. If it is, then we're going to put $5. So the computer wouldn't get to this stage if the number wasn't greater than 5. So we don't have to worry about saying it is greater than 5 and less than 15. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't greater than 5. Therefore we just have to put in less than 15. And this is the false part. Well, what if it's not less than 15? Well, if it's not been less than 5 and it's not been less than 15, it must be greater than 15, in which case we want $10 returned. So in here we can see, is 0 less than 5? Yes it is, in which case put in $2. Is 27 less than 5? No. Well, then we check, is 27 less than 15? No. Therefore return 10. But if we take this formula, is 8 less than 5? No. So we go to the false part. Is 8 less than 15? Yes. So we return 5. And that's how the if statements work. In cell H3, enter a formula to calculate the profit for the sale. This will be calculated by taking the income, both the viewing cost multiplied by the number of times viewed and the advertising cost. Now, there's more than one way to do this, but I'm going to go, it's my income, that's how much I've made, and I'm going to minus the viewing cost by how many times it's being viewed, and I'm going to minus as well the advertising. Now the other way I could have done this is I could have said it's going to be minus, and understanding that the maths we're using is exactly the same as maths in general, so I'm going to calculate first of all what's in the brackets, so E3 times F3, and I'm going to add on to that the advertising costs. Whatever the sum of all of this is, I'm going to minus it from C3. You can decide which of those formulas you prefer the use of. Apply appropriate formatting to all cells. Well, we go back to the blurb at the start, and all currency values must be in dollars to do decimal places. So do these in the a bit clearer. Well, this is price and this must be price. So I'm going to right mouse button, format the cells. And I want currency but not English pounds. I want US dollars. In cell H1, I want to enter a formula to calculate the total profits if all the properties were sold. Well, normally when we see a sum and an if statement in the same sentence, that would be a sum if, but in this case all we need to do is, we have no way of knowing if they've been sold or not, so the question's actually asking if we did manage to sell all of these, what would the price be? So we'll sum that from H3 to H39, and there's our answer. Edit this formula so that it rounds this value to the nearest whole dollar. Well, we have a function for that called round. You can see it's a fraction at the end, so the function is round, and then the number that you want to round, which in this case is the sum of H3 to H39, comma, to how many decimal places do you want to round it? Well, I want to round it to no decimal places, and therefore it's rounded it down to the nearest number. Okay, now this is the interesting part of printing off your work for this exam. So save and print the spreadsheet showing formulas. So the first thing I do is go to my formulas and tick the button which says show formulas. Now it's important here, if you have a look at the if statement, there's just a little bit missing off at the end. So we're just going to make sure we can see all the information. We'll go to print. If you're using a different version of Excel, it's still a question of just finding the print and then trying to find the section which says page setup. And in the page setup, everything we could possibly need is in here somewhere. It's just a question of finding it. So we want it to be landscape, and we want it to fit to one page. So one page wide by how many tall? Well, one page by one page. If I have a look through here, I've got various things that I could actually change, like the custom header and footer. And the sheet, for example, there's grid lines I could put on, whether I want it black and white, whether I want the row and column headings. It doesn't ask for it in this exam, but quite often the exam board will ask for putting in the column headings and showing the grid lines. That was just an example, so I have to take those off. And I'll print off that single sheet. Now the next question, print the spreadsheet showing the value actual and on a single page which is going to be portrait. So we'll go to our formulas, we'll untick the show formulas, and we'll just make sure we can see all our answers, see all our cells, and then we're going to go back to printing. And we'll go back to our page setup, and this time portrait, fit to one page by one page, click on OK. And then we'll just print off that document. Okay, update the spreadsheet with the following data. So 1053 was visited 3 times and 1055 was visited 5 times. So 1053 was visited 5 times and this one was 10 times. What you should see now is that our formula is automatically updated and our total profit automatically updated. And then we just need to print off the page again. So your manager will now like to see the effects of changing the spreadsheet model. Well, this is the obvious benefit of using spreadsheets, is that you can change the variables within the model to do what if scenarios. So the income from the sale of the property was calculated in step 4. Change the formula to be $150 plus 2% of the property. So not 100 plus 2.5, but 150 and 2%. So if we understood what we did here, we just change our 100 to 150 and we change our 2.5 to 2%. And now we're just update. You'll see the whole spreadsheet is updated automatically. And again, it fits on a single page portrait, which if we've just left it from the previous settings, that will print out. Just to double check. Okay, there's our page setup. A4 page, single page, and we'll just print that off. Okay, now we come to the end of the exam. Now it says on here, on your HTML printouts, so what that means is once you've printed out your code as you've gone along, you need to have a highlighter pen And to make it easier for the examiners to mark your work, you'd highlight your name, centre number, candidate number, okay, where the external style sheet is attached to your web page, the table border and the cell padding, the 4 images you've resized. All of this is in the actual code that you printed off earlier. It just makes it easier for the examiners to see the work. The hyperlink that opens in the new web page called Farm and to a new window called _Farm. You have the hyperlink text on the sales team, and you have the property inquiries to the email address. Okay, and that will be the end of the exam.